Welcome to the Healthy Relationships Initiative podcast. Our goal is to provide information and tools to help you build happier, healthier, and safer relationships of all kinds.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Christine Murray, and I'm the director for the Healthy Relationships Initiative. And we want to welcome you to today's Relationship Booster. Our topic for today's program is one that is on a lot of parents' minds, and that's navigating friendship challenges with children. Before we get started, I'm going to give just a little bit of background information, and then I'll introduce our speaker. So as I said, my name is Christine Murray, and I direct the Healthy Relationships Initiative, as well as I'm the director of the Center for Youth, Family, and Community Partnerships at UNC Greensboro. We've been working on the Healthy Relationships Initiative for the past several years, and it's a partnership between UNC Greensboro and the Phillips Foundation. And our mission is to promote happy, healthy, and safe relationships of all kinds. And we invite you to check out our website at guilfordhri.org or connect with us on social media at Healthy Relationships Initiative on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest to connect with our different resources and learn about other upcoming programs as we have those scheduled. Before we start, for those who might be joining us live, whether it's through our Zoom program or if you might even be joining us live through Facebook, we do welcome your questions. If you have any questions at any time, you can submit those through the chat room in Zoom or through the comments in Facebook. Our moderator is Camila Dos Santos, and so she will be keeping an eye on the chat room, as will I. And so we will definitely take some questions as they come in. We'll probably have plenty to talk about, even if we don't get any questions, but we always like to take questions that come up throughout the program too. And at the end of the program, Camila will share a link at the end to help connect you with a feedback form where you can share feedback to help us know what we're doing well and what we could do better to improve our future programs. Today's topic, again, is navigating friendship challenges with children, and we're very thankful today to have Amy Denny here with us, who is a local school counselor. So, Amy, thank you for being here.
Hello.
And Amy, if you could you go ahead and give us a little bit of background to you about your professional experiences and why this particular topic is of interest to you?
Okay. Well, thank you first for having me, and it's an honor to even be asked to do this. I have been working at Brown Summit Middle School for 15 years. This is the end of my 15 years being there. I'm a middle school counselor. It was my first job into the counseling program, and I've really enjoyed being there. But just being there, I've learned so many things about friendships and how they are so important, and having a healthy relationship with friends, and even just my own self as well, and my kids. So it's very, very important to me, and for the kids in all schools and around the world to have healthy relationships and friendships. So that's, and you can see I'm from Oklahoma. I moved here 15 years ago. I went to Southeastern Oklahoma State University, have a minor major in psychology and a minor in sociology. And then after working at an elementary school for a little while, I decided that I wanted to become a school counselor. So while I was working at the school, kind of just doing little odds and ends things there, helping around, I received my master's in education for school counseling at East Central University of Oklahoma.
So, great. Yeah, well, it's great you have that experience both in the elementary school, but especially in middle school. I mean, if your middle school experience was anything like mine, that is definitely the point in time where your focus really shifts more toward friendships, kind of away from your family, and you are all about your friends during that stage of life. So I'm sure the topic of children's friendships is maybe not something you anticipated would be such a big part of your life, but it's such a huge part of middle school life that it's probably unavoidable.
Yes, always. It's always the problems, always the issues. So yes, with the kids.
Yeah, that's a good point that you mentioned, in the introduction about having healthy relationships and friendships, but a lot of times it is the friendships and the challenges that come up that are, that can be upsetting for kids. So let's start first by talking about healthy friendship and healthy relationships. So what do you think would be, just across the board, and of course there could be some changes between early childhood all the way through high school, maybe even college, but Why do you think healthy relationships, why is that something that's so important in childhood at any phase?
Well, just realizing that you're going to interact with people your whole life. So how to know how to navigate and know what somebody means or what somebody is saying to you and not take it personally or not take it offensively. And so it's very important for their mental health and then for physically as well. Because if you think of any time you may get in an argument with somebody or have a feelings with just anybody in your family or friends or coworkers or anything. It goes along with just not being friendships with kids, but also how important it is throughout life, and it decreases anxiety and depression throughout life if you have a good balance and healthy relationship early on.
I think that's such a great point, and that those early relationships and friendships really set the stage. They're important at that stage throughout childhood or throughout the teen years, even throughout life. But they really also learning to have those sort of healthy relationships early on can set the stage for having healthy relationships of other kinds at different points in life too.
Yeah, it's just really important for parents and for even school systems within the school to help students navigate those relationships, because it's not always, you have to understand the other person as well, understand how they feel, how to navigate, what are they saying, validating feelings. And it's hard to make kids understand that at a young age, but it's very important to start teaching that at a young age.
And I'm sure as a school counselor, you probably see certain ways that friendship challenges or strengths and strong, healthy friendships even impacts kids in their school functioning and how they're doing academically even.
Yeah, because I mean, there have been kids that maybe a parent will call me or something and say, you know, my kid doesn't want to come to school because they're being bullied or they're feeling this certain way. They had an argument with their friends, and then there's multiple friends in the group, and then one gets kind of completely cut out. So it's very difficult to explain to that child and help them to understand and be secure, to be able to move on from that situation. It's hard for them to be in a
Yeah.
classroom with other kids that maybe they think that are bullying them or being mean to them in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think definitely it can become a huge barrier even for kids, like you said, wanting to go to school or feeling comfortable or being able to concentrate in school if they're able to build those sort of healthy friendship networks. And, you know, I think if we could think for a few minutes about what that looks like at different points in life. Obviously, you said you work mostly with middle school students, you've worked some in an elementary school, but even very early, like preschool age, you know, as soon as kind of they're able to start thinking about friendship or having friends, whether that's like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old who might sit next to each other and, you know, run around together on the playground. What do you see as some of the kind of challenges or maybe the earliest kind of things that parents should think about when it comes to what friendships might look like in the very early childhood years?
Well, of course, you want to find healthy relationships for your kids, but then also at those young early ages, you're still trying to teach your kids as well. You know, you have to share. You have to be able to give of your things as well. Would you want somebody else to let you play with their toy? And those are the things as a young child that kids really struggle with, is sharing. And you can even see in the picture here, a little girl is handing the little boy something in the picture. It's all about giving and taking in all relationships, and teaching them that early on is giving and taking is in a healthy way, not just taking from someone. And I've always used this example with kids when they come to my office or whatever. I say to them and say, you know, because if they get into an argument about something, and I say, well, if I say to you, if somebody has a pencil or something on their desk and I snatch it from them, what's the automatic reaction going to happen? And they say back to me, I'm going to take it back from them. I said, but if that person needs something from you, you say, can I borrow your pencil? What do you think the reaction is going to be back? well, they're going to say, yes, sure, you can borrow my pencil. So it is always that statement as hurt people, but explaining it in a way for a younger population to understand that statement. So if you're mean to me, of course, I'm going to react immediately back. And so teaching them young that sharing is important and validating others' feelings, but doing it in a way for young kids, it's modeling as well, modeling as a parent.
I think that's such a great point, that especially at those early ages, one of the best things that parents can really do is be a role model of that, both in their interactions with their children around like, well, I was using this, so, how would you ask me? Even,
Yeah.
kind of between that parent-child interaction. And then also, I think at that age, it's healthy for kids to really start to even see their parents have healthy relationships and healthy friendships, and see them doing that in their own relationship too. So I think that's another way that parents can even start to think about fostering these healthy relationships.
Yeah.
And I like what you said too, because it's just at that age, it's just really important for parents to start laying the foundation with some of the basics, cooperation, sharing, using your words. I know when my kids were at that preschool level, it would just use your words as a parent is something you probably say about like 30, 40 times a day. Use your words, use your words. Now that my kids are a little older, even sometimes I still have to say that. But it's true. I mean, the basics that you learn in that sort of pre-K, kindergarten point in time are fundamental skills that even as adults, we need to use as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just, kids can be so difficult, but they can be so forgiving and so loving. And at an early age, sometimes we're too worried about talking it out and figuring it out. Bottom line is they're done after a few minutes. So just modeling it is very important.
Right. And keeping it really concrete and specific so that they can understand that this is a basic way that you interact with other people.
Yeah.
I think, when I think about my own kids who are now upper elementary and middle school, I think that it is when they get around like the middle of elementary school when you start to see some changes and some of the dynamics and, maybe some of the drama that you can see among peers in schools. It sort of moves from some of those basics like sharing and, talking over people to some more complicated friendship issues. So before we get to middle school, which I know your kind of specialty area, what are some of your thoughts around, some of the changes and challenges that might happen in the upper elementary school age?
Well, they're starting to kind of navigate themselves and figure out, like, they're starting to see even academically where they kind of stand. Those are the kinds of things. And they start to become a little insecure or learning that security, how to be secure in themselves and how, and it still goes on into middle school a little bit, but they're still learning themselves a little bit more. This 7 to 11 that's using their voice. They don't always know how to use their voice, but then there's some kids that really know how to assert themselves and be aggressive in what they want. So teaching them early on to use your voice, like you were saying earlier, I think that's one of the most important things, is using your voice early and the figuring out how to help them to be secure in themselves starting out at this age. Because they're like what they're, you kind of still like would maybe still dress them or whatever, but now they're like, I want my own identity. I want to wear what I want to wear. I'm seeing what other people are doing. I kind of want to do that. I want to try new things. So they're seeing new things and asking questions. So that's the difference between that little 7 to 11 age there. They're experiencing new things in life and feeling different things as well.
And I think at that point too, and then especially even moving into middle school, is in somewhat when you start to see more, like, not only are they looking at their own identity, but they're also looking at others. And so I think that, as we get more into those age groups, a lot of the times you'll see more around like inclusion or not inclusion, like excluding people and friendships. So you might, as a parent, you might be looking at your child as one and maybe they're being excluded, and maybe that's really the first time that that's become an issue, or maybe they're kind of being exclusive and not very considerate of others' feelings. You know, and I know that's something that I've always kind of struggled with too as a parent, just sort of like, how much do I, you know, really teach them to be inclusive of everybody, which is a real value, and then also honoring, you know, that they want to have choice in who they make as their friends.
Absolutely.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on that piece and how parents might be able to sort of navigate those kind of challenges?
Those are really tough ones because, I see that a lot in school. I see where kids, and I even tell my kids as well, you don't ever want to exclude anybody, still be kind. You don't have to be rude, and setting boundaries. Boundaries are the biggest thing. And I think that's what I would always tell parents is if you have a kid that is maybe feeling left out, you can bring them into the group a little bit or somehow, some way, and have some boundaries. But also I try to even talk with teachers, because I am in the school system, talk with teachers, and I would have parents say that as well. Talk to the teachers and say, is my child being excluded? Could you set them up in a different group with maybe other kids that maybe they're more like-minded? And then also try to teach, if I see little things with my child myself, try to work with them as well. Like, well, I see you're doing this. How can we change that? Like, talk them through it. Like, talk them through how they can change the situation, or how they're responding, or how they're reacting that could possibly make them be isolated. So it's a tough conversation, of course, to have with parents sometimes, because you don't want the parent to think that the kid's just sitting alone all the time. But at school, the teachers are very caring and very loving and see those kinds of things. And as a school counselor, I see those things as well. So I will talk to the teachers and say, hey, can you move the kids? Can you find somebody? And sometimes I will even pull kids in and talk to them individually and say, hey, who are you friends with? Could you try to include certain groups a little bit more? So it's a tough navigation of things when kids are being isolated, but you never want anyone to feel that way ever.
And I think we always, anytime we're sort of within the Healthy Relationships Initiative, helping parents think about, how do I talk to my kids about any difficult issue, we always try to say it's not a one-time conversation, so this is something that, especially, fortunately, friendship, I think, is usually a bit less controversial than some of the other topics that come up in middle school, hopefully. So hopefully it's one that's not as scary for parents to talk about as like sex and drugs and, other like social media and bullying and things like that, that of course are difficult to talk, or, very sensitive, but, really for it to be an ongoing conversation. So who are your friends? What's important to you in a friendship? Thinking about, how do you talk about with your kids if they have a fight or a conflict with a friend? And if they're having challenges, how can they maybe set boundaries? Even though that might seem like a really weird thing to be talking about with like a elementary or a middle school student, even a high school student, but to say, like, if somebody's being mean to you, what's a healthy way that you can, communicate to them that that's not okay with you, and you can still be nice to them about it.
Yes. And standing up for yourself. And that's hard. That's hard for kids sometimes, to stand up for themselves.
Definitely. Yeah. I know one of the things that I've tried to teach with my kids is like, you don't have to let everyone into your inner circle, but you have to be kind to everybody,
Yeah.
So I've tried to kind of talk with them. I'll hold my fingers up so people can see what I'm doing, but, kind of like concentric circles. So who you might only have, like, you might have one person who's super tight with you, or you might have 10 people that are super tight with you. And then, each level out, and that there's value in all kinds of friendships. Like, you don't have to see somebody every day or do everything with them to still really benefit from being close to that person or having a positive relationship with them. And I think that can be a helpful way for parents to navigate some pieces of that too, to say, well, not everybody has to be your best friend or has to be the people that you are going to be spending time with all the time, but you can still show kindness. You can be supportive of people who, fall outside of that group. And that's actually a really good thing.
Yes. And it's always important to make sure your kids have more than one friend. Don't just, that old don't put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing.
Yeah.
And not to say that, one good friend isn't very important, because a lot of people have that one go-to person, but sometimes it can be too much for the other person, and you have to understand balance and boundaries are very important. So you can't just overload one person with just always being with just them, because that other person may not feel that way, and they may want to have other friends, and the jealousy piece, and they left me out. And if you have other friends and you're secure, then you're going to know that it's okay for them to have other friends.
I think that is a really good point. And I think that is something that in today's world, at least where we are in Guilford County in North Carolina, where you've got the school district is so many schools. Like where I grew up, it was basically everybody went to the same elementary school, then the same middle school, and then the same high
Yeah.
school. So, I mean, I
Mhm.
had friends that I went from preschool through graduating high school with.
Yeah.
But having one friend in today's world would be very, even if it's somebody you've gone all through elementary school with, chances are one of you might go to a different middle school or a different high school. You might even go, the middle schools, at least, compared to where I grew up, again, are huge here, so you've got like over 1,000 kids in a middle school. Even if your best friend goes to that same school as you, you may not see them.
Yeah.
So, kind of even on a real practical level, even if your kid or your child, has a really close, tight friendship, helping them to understand why it's important to have a lot of different friendships and being able to, and even in some ways you could think like having friendship building skills, so that I can go into a new environment and maybe they're not my longtime friends that I know everything about already, but I can learn how to start to build friendships.
Yes. And that's another thing that I talk about with kids is when they're struggling with friendships is conversation starters. Like, you can, what do you like to do? Did you have a good weekend? Like just small conversation starters. Those are really good for, um, to kind of have in your tool belt, with kids, just simple questions. Do you play any sports? Do you do any extracurricular activities? Maybe not that big a word for a small kid, but did you do anything this weekend? Like those are small conversation starters. What's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? Do you play video games? Do you love books? There's so many conversation starters that can lead into other conversations if you can get the kids to understand those small little ones. So.
What would be your suggestion with those? I think that's such a great point. And I'm just thinking kids who are shy, like, do you have any suggestions if you have a child that is especially shy or, or for whatever reason, maybe kind of a loner who might be really afraid to even if they have the words, how can they kind of get over some of their nervousness about
Um, I always role play. I mean, I know it sounds strange, but role play it out. So if you can actually hear what it sounds like coming out of your mouth yourself with another person that you feel comfortable with. So I'll even sometimes have the kids say, what are some things that you could say? Or you are sitting next to the person and they're reading a book. Like you could, even if it's not something you're necessarily interested in, you could say, hey, do you enjoy that book? Or do you like that book that you're reading? Or something like that. So just role playing is a really important piece in that, because for them to be able to hear it out their mouth and out of their mouth, with them saying it at least one time or a couple of times, they'll feel more comfortable saying it. I think with kids. So we do that a lot at school and even my own home.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The role playing can be really helpful for kids. And, sometimes too, you might even role play that not everybody's going to turn into a friend, and you
Right.
can be as friendly as possible. And sometimes people aren't necessarily going to reciprocate. And so, to some extent, maybe helping them develop some sort of work through fears of rejection, or develop some, okay, this kid, I tried to talk to this kid, didn't really work out. They weren't really interested. Where's someone else that I can find, and being able
Exactly.
to kind of bounce back from that. because realistically, not every initial connection is going to translate into a friendship.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
some people, kids and adults alike, just aren't friendly. They're not
Yeah.
nice.
And you're not
And
going to connect with everyone. Everyone is,
yeah.
they're not going to. And that's what you have to, that's what you have to explain to your kids as well. And that it's okay that you don't have to connect with everyone. And even if you are friends with one of those people in that group, but you don't connect with the others, that's okay as well. Like, you can still be friends with that one person and not have to connect with that whole group of people that maybe your friend is a friend with.
And I have to say, I think, that even as kids get into middle and high school, I think being able to look at their parents as a role model for friendship is a really good thing. And in fact, we, maybe 6 months or so ago, I can't remember exactly when, but we actually did a program on making friends as an adult. And a lot of parents struggle with having friendships and keeping friendships. And of course, it's funny thinking about it now, because I think, we were sort of coming at it from the angle that it's important to have friends for yourself as an adult, but it's also really something important. You can't really model good friendship for your child if you're not making the friendships in your life a priority too.
Right. Right. And even as an adult, no matter what, you're going to have conflict with people. It's all in how you handle it. It's all in how you say things and validate. And I think no matter what, just like with my best friend the other night, like, we had a conflict with one another, but we worked it out. It was she felt one way, I felt another. You're going to have those conflicts no matter what throughout life. And are you going to like get scared? Are they going to reject me? Or are you going to go, it's okay, this person loves me, and validating each other? And conflict's going to happen in life no matter what. It just,
Right.
everybody does not see eye to eye. And so conflict in all friendships, no matter what age you are, you're still going to have them, whether they're family, friends, coworkers, whatever. But how do you navigate them, and how do you say things in the right way? And I think this navigating friendly challenges with kids and things like that starts at a young age to help them along in life with many, many situations.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually really proud of my son. One of my sons earlier this week, he said he had gotten into some sort of conflict with one of his friends while they were playing video games together virtually. And he said that they ended up apologizing and they worked it out, but apparently it was a pretty intense conflict, and we talked about it, and it was just neat to hear him kind of talk about that. And he was saying how he made a real point of apologizing, because he was realizing how, he even said he told his friend that you're like a brother to me. And so it's neat to see him, but for him to be able to start to practice some of those skills. And then we were able to talk about it too, which hopefully helps. Those are,
Absolutely.
Parents can also remember that those are good learning opportunities, and those are good chances for you to sit down and say, okay, so you're struggling with this friend, let's talk about it. And it's interesting too, because I can remember even in first grade, and he's now he'll be going into 8th, he had a little conflict with one of his friends who he said wasn't being very nice to him. And I said, well, you can tell him, I'll still always be your friend, but I'm not going to be able to spend that much time with you as long as you're not treating me this way. And it's so interesting, because he still, even to this day, remembers that. Like, we'll still talk about it now, that this is something that we talked about many years ago, that if somebody's not being kind to you, you don't have to put yourself in this situation, but you can still be nice to them. And sometimes you do need to take a step back from certain people. So, the more parents, I think, can really just seize those natural learning experiences, and especially as we're talking about kids as they're moving into like middle school and high school, you want to show as a parent that you can talk about those relationship challenges, because when your child starts dating, you really want to have that open door so that they'll come to you for those challenges too.
Absolutely. Yes. And modeling. Yeah.
Yeah, modeling. So another big challenge I could see at the middle school and high school age especially is technology, and how that plays out in friendship. So I'm so curious to hear, what are some of the things that you've seen And then how can parents navigate that?
Okay, that's a
She had to take a deep breath for that one because it's such a big question.
definitely with that one, because that one is I have a sixth grader of my own, and he wants all the social media. He wants, all those things, and as a parent, they can't miss it if they don't have it. So I'm not saying that you're bad if you let your kid have any of those things at all, but once you let them have it, it's hard to take it away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start from a parent perspective here, and then I'll move through what I see in the school. So, you have to talk with your kids about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate when you do let them decide to have it. So, for example, when kids are bullied on social media, and there's a picture or something taken, and nobody comments because they want to see how many people have liked it, how many people have made a comment, whether it's nice or it's not, and then that comment can automatically just deflate you. And so as a person, you have to realize that it's not okay for them to say those things to you. But if they don't have the social media, then they can't feel that way about it. So that's the big thing with social media. So with my kids, I say no until they get a little bit older and they can actually handle the comments that can come in. So even parents that call me on the phone at school, I say to them that it's not a good idea. It's up to you. It's just not a good idea, I would say, because once they have it, you can't take it away, like I said. So friendships are difficult with social media, and working through those, it's hard to take away the hurt and the words that have been said. And if somebody doesn't like a picture, then if you see somebody hanging out with other people at another hangout and you weren't invited, then you get to see that on social media. So those are the disadvantages from having it. But then there are also advantages of having it as well, because, for example, we've had social media with school, with posting things of praising kids and where they're going to high school and what they're going to be doing, and then they kind of get to miss out on that. And then if we have a spirit week or pictures of kids here and there, those are the things they kind of miss out on if they don't have. So there are advantages and disadvantages, and as a family, you have to decide that what's best for you. And then also it is with the social media piece, protecting your kids. So following them, checking their social media, because a lot of times kids will make fake accounts and they'll tell you they don't have something. But if you let them have all this access to their phones, they're going to, if they know the passwords, they're going to make fake accounts. They're going to make their own social media without you knowing, and then could end up getting in trouble and being in a position where they don't feel like they can tell you because they have it and they've gotten into a pickle and don't know what to do. So being open with them, but also setting boundaries and not letting them have too much, because sometimes parents they're like, I'm tired of fighting with you. Okay, fine, you can have it. But then what you're getting from that after you give in.
Yeah, really being careful when it's introduced, making sure your child is emotionally mature enough to handle that. And then also as a parent, I really agree with you. I think that, starting as being very strict is not a bad thing, and let your child show some responsibility over time. That, I always think about it, like if you think your kid after they graduate from high school or they turn 18, they're going to have the freedom to make decisions for themselves. So as a parent, it's sort of this gradual building process to get to the point to where they're really ready and able to make those positive decisions for themselves. But you can't assume that a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, even a 14, 15, 16, 17, really even 18-year-old really has the ability to navigate those. So as a parent, I think that's a great point, that, you know, as a parent, you don't want it necessarily to just be like, fine, I give up. I'm tired of hearing you beg me for this. You can have it, but really to make sure that, one, your child is kind of ready to take that on and all the different possible social and friendship dynamics that come up. And then you as a parent, you know, do you have the time and the energy and the capacity at that time to really protect them and be looking over their shoulder in the beginning, and let them, you know, let them know, what is it going to take? What do I need to see from you to be able to earn that more freedom?
Yeah, and also because it's scary, you feel bad. You don't want to make them feel like you are hovering too much, but what they really don't realize is that you're trying to protect them from the hurt and the pain that they're going to receive from people saying things to them, or people maybe peer pressuring them into doing something that they wouldn't typically have done. You know, in the school setting, the things that I see are people sometimes making fake accounts for other kids and then making it look like they are saying things when this kid didn't even make the account. Then you have kids taking pictures of other kids and sending it to somebody else, which, you know, a lot of kids have phones, and that's something hard to navigate away from. But just protecting your kids, and who you tell your kids that they can have a phone number. Like, don't just give anybody your phone number. Make sure that it's a safe person, or you've asked me and we know. Like, so my child is not able, he's not supposed to delete any text. You can set up some things that you receive all of their text messages. You can do that all if you want to. It just depends on you and whether you trust your child or not. But there are a lot of sites out there that kids are going to that parents don't know about, that there are sex trafficking and things like that happening that the kids aren't even aware. They think that they're talking to another kid that is their age, when it's really not another kid their age. So it can be very, very scary. So that's the reason why I say take it lightly. And when, like you said as well, at that age when it's appropriate and they feel like that they can handle it, because at school, sometimes we have to handle some things that happen, and it's hard because it hurts the kids and it hurts the parents and other kids involved as well. You're not sometimes just hurting one person, it's a bunch of people.
Yeah. I found one of the things that's really helpful is getting to know my kids' friends' parents, and, you know, being able to kind of talk with them. And they do the same thing too, to say, like, you know, one of my friends recently sent a group message and said, you know, my kid wants to be on Facebook. Like, what are you all thinking about that? And it's like, no, we don't want to do that, you know, but, you know, to kind of understand like what, and I like it too, being, whether, thankfully, you know, it's a nice close group of friends for me personally, but even if it wasn't, I think it's really helpful as a parent to at least somewhat get to know and have some communication with your child's friends' parents, because you might, maybe it's that one text message that your kid deletes before you have the chance to see it, but maybe their friend sees it, or, you know, or can keep a pulse on, you know, on the types of messages that kids are getting, and, you know, just to kind of make them aware. So like, as you're kind of thinking about, almost like it is that kind of term, but thinking about like that, you know, building a village and having a village. So I don't necessarily need to monitor every single text message, because one, I'm monitoring some of them and I'm seeing what's going on. And then also I'm talking with my child's friends' parents, and they're watching in their own special way too, you know, and it helps too to kind of know, because sometimes, of course, kids at that age can be like, well, everybody at my school has Instagram, or everybody has this. Well, then you start sort of talking about it with other people and realize that actually that's not necessarily true. And even if it is true, I think parents today sometimes need to be reminded that, you need to do what's best for your family and your own child. And maybe your child is the very last one to get a phone, or is the last one to get a social media account, or whatever it might be. And if that's what makes the most sense for your child and for your family, then that's just that's life, that's part of being able to kind of make the rules in your own family. But you do want to probably think about, if all of your kids, how to navigate that. I mean, just being as a parent, how do you navigate if everybody else is on Instagram and you're the last holdout that you're not? You're probably going to have some extra conversations and explain why not, and what are the criteria for when you will be. So is that something that you see too in your work as a school counselor, and how might you navigate that?
Yeah, that's one of the big things. I do have parents ask me, because they'll say, well, my kid's wanting this. What's your thoughts and your opinions? And I give my thoughts and opinions, and I say it's my opinion, and I tell them that. I'm not telling them that it's research based or anything like that. Sometimes I'm just saying, I will tell them personally what I see at school and how it affects kids. And so I give them a little background of the things that, some stories or things that I've seen, and it helps them to either have that conversation with their kids and make that decision themselves. Because kids will even come to me, will you talk to my parents about this? Will you ask them if I can have social media? And I'm like,
that's not my job.
No, I'm not going to do that. But if they do call me, I do talk to them about it, and I give them the pros and cons, and I let them know that they have to figure that out and weigh out those options. So.
Well, and I think one of the other things that I was hoping we could spend a little time on, people may be watching the recorded version of this later on, but right now we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. And, so to some extent, the questions of technology and social connection have taken on a whole different look right now. It's like different when they're able to be in school, but kind of whether it's related to that or other pieces, what are some suggestions that you would have for how parents can help their children still have healthy friendships, even if they might not be able to see those friends, or at least not as often?
Right. Well, Facebook has come up with a Friends Instant Messenger for kids, which it's a great option for kids. My kids have used it with their friends. It's a safe place that I see every single one of their texts. I know what's going on. I can look at everything that they are doing. That's an easy, safe way, I feel like. Also, just individual FaceTime or Skype when you're right there with them and you can hear what they're saying. Of course, Zoom is also an option. And then as well as just asking, say, hey, does your family feel comfortable? And I always preface it that way, because not every family is feeling very comfortable during this pandemic. They have definitely not isolated, but quarantined and stayed home and not gone out. And then you have other people that are kind of staying with just a couple of families. So for myself and, my family, we're staying with our few people. I heard somebody call it one day their germ pod. And so I thought that was really cute. We have our few people that now my kids aren't going anywhere. The only places we're really going is maybe to their homes, and we know that they're healthy and they're safe. And the only places that they've been is maybe to the grocery store or something like that, and they've kept themselves healthy. So just asking the other family member, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable with your kid coming over and sitting outside, or riding bikes, or having a picnic together, or something along those natures? Can they play video games online together if they do that? Navigating all of that, because I think the biggest thing is it's been hard for adults, but very difficult for the kids, because they're not getting to see anyone. I mean, they're not even getting to go to the grocery store or drive around, really. They just are stuck in the house. And so it's been very challenging for small children and teenagers and things like that when they're very social, and it can become very isolated, and they can become very depressed. So it's very important to notice that in your kids and set up things that help them to be able to contact other people. So whether it be using your phone or instant messenger, FaceTime, setting up a play date outside of your home, outside or something like that. Whatever feels comfortable for the other people is important.
Yeah, and I think even just acknowledging those losses that they're feeling, I especially really just, you think about how we kind of shifted into the pandemic and kids, there was no closure, there was no, it was like, we might be back on Monday, we might not, it was a Friday, and then the call was made, obviously not to go back on that Monday, but it's, they didn't have the normal school type of closure with those friends, didn't know how long it was going to be before they would see their friends before their friends again. And so it's hard. I think it's sad. And I think as parents, you're struggling a lot too. So it's difficult to really take the time and energy to really maybe sit with your kids with their emotions, but just really validating that you see how hard it is and how hard it can be, and offering them different ways to connect. I think this can be a way where it can be helpful also, that modeling, to say, okay, well, maybe they don't want to connect with their friend in a particular way, but they can see you as an adult, like having a virtual hangout with a friend or something, just as a way to show them, like, all right, you may not want to do this, but look at this, and look how nice it is to just have a chance to talk with your friends, and things like that. And so I think that's a great point too, to just really be respectful of what other people are comfortable with, and understanding some people may be way more comfortable with things than you are, and some people may be way less. And that can be another important friendship lesson too, is just, the importance of kind of respecting other people's boundaries and knowing your own boundaries too, and wanting to spend people who have those similar boundaries.
Right, exactly. And there's also another great app. I don't know if you've heard of it, Marco Polo. That's a great app for kids and adults as well, to be able to use to just chat about anything that's going on. That maybe it's not a immediate response from the other person, but then they can respond to you whenever they get a chance, and it's not bombarding their time and them having to, as a parent, having to set up a time to do a Zoom call or a FaceTime call or something like that. So it becomes pretty simple. Like the kid can talk to their friend, Marco Polo, then talk for a little bit, turn it off, and then the other kid can watch it whenever they're able to, and then vice versa. So that's a really great tool as well for parents that are looking for an outlet for their kids.
And I think too, kind of on those lines too, would be to think about, if they can't have as much contact with friends, maybe there are other people in your life and in your world that you could help connect them with. So maybe it's using those opportunities to connect more virtually with grandparents or, neighbors or things like that. And of course, it's not going to take the place of those friendship interactions, but but still giving them more of that social connection and that feeling of having healthy relationships in their life, even if it looks really different than when they were in school or now in summer camp. And so, I think that that's a really good piece as well, too, is to sort of just think creatively. One of the things I've been sort of thinking about, too, because I feel like I've been quarantined with my children for so long that they just probably at this point just view me as like one of them, we've just been together so much. But I mean, in some ways it's true. Like, as a parent, I've heard it said, as a parent, your child should not be your best friend, at least when they're younger, maybe when you're all adults and everything, but you can't unload all of your emotional needs onto a young child. But you as a parent are a friend to you. You can be a friend to your child. And sometimes it's hard to balance that role between, parent and friend. But, this might be a time especially where, to some extent, we as parents need to step up and more into that friend role to some, while keeping appropriate discipline and, the parent, parental respect and things. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that's absolutely necessary. Yes, because sometimes you just need to share your thoughts and feelings about, like, yes, I'm an adult, and yes, I'm going to get upset, and yes, I have stressors and I have things, but not making them feel the load, but how you say it in a way that they understand what's going on as well, and that they're not alone in their feelings, but it's also important for you to share your feelings as well. and how
Mm-hmm.
things are going. So I think it's very, very important. And believe me, I have done that.
Yeah.
You are stressing me out a little bit here.
Yeah.
So I need you guys to calm down. I need you to take it down a notch, and work this out amongst yourselves. And if you can't work it out, then we'll talk about it. But I do send my kids off a lot by, do you want me to help you work it out, or do you want to work it out amongst yourselves?
Mm-hmm.
So
And I think that's great too, because that, I mean, having positive communication is such an important part of healthy friendships in childhood and in other parts of life. And, sometimes it's helpful as that parent to just say, I'm going to listen to you like I'm your friend now. And then sometimes
yeah,
I'll say to my kids, like, I guess I need to be strict mommy right now. Like,
yeah,
strict mommy is coming out. I am not your friend right now, And so if you weren't maybe communicating with your child, that could be very confusing for them to see, like, whoa, I was just telling her my feelings and she was being supportive, and now all of a sudden, like, she's laying down rules and I'm being disciplined. But to even talk with them, especially in a calmer moment, to say, I have many jobs as your parent, and sometimes it's to help support you, and then other times my job is to discipline you. Or if you've
yeah,
done something wrong, then it's important for me as a parent to help you to learn that lesson.
yes,
But I do think, especially right now, with such limited social interaction, one, as parents, I think we do need to be careful about not unloading everything onto our
yeah,
children and making sure, but we can't help it too. Sometimes I'll vent to my kids too, because I'm like, there's nobody else to vent to right now. You're sitting here and I'm frustrated. But, making sure then that you're reaching out to your friends as a parent, you're connecting or going to a counselor, your friends or family, so you're not placing extra burden on your
absolutely.
child, but to be there for them as a friend too. I mean, they need you to feel, I think, in many times, that you are also, at least, that you can have a friendship even if your larger role is as their parent,
Yeah,
especially right now.
on their side and supporting them.
Yeah, exactly. So we're down to our last 5 to 10 minutes or so. So one question that I wanted to make sure we did touch on is, if you as a parent find that your child is really struggling in friendships, or they don't have friends, or they have a lot of unnecessary drama and conflict in friends that they don't seem to be able to manage, obviously as a parent, you're going to try to do your best to manage it. But if you can't manage it on your own, you could reach out, it sounds like, from what we've talked about before, with the school counselor, teachers. Are there other recommendations that you would have for where parents could go to either learn more or get help for their specific situation?
Yeah, so of course, you know, it depends on who you are as a person and your background and what, I mean, there are churches, of course, that are available. Um, Sometimes even your friends can actually, if you have a friend that your kid really respects, it could possibly be asking your friend to, could you spend some time with my kid? Could you mentor them a little bit? Or even, of course, a counselor. If you see those red flags of your kid is isolating, your kid. Really look at the telltale signs, like, are they not talking? Are they not saying anything? Are they not eating? Are they, and then that comes along with other things, but I won't get
Mm-hmm.
into that. But just red flags, just making sure your kid is okay. And I think one of the main things I say to my kids, even during this isolation part, I say to them, how are you today? How are you doing? Like, how was your day? And we're together all day long. And even at dinner time, I'll sit down to them, how was your day today? And I'll pretend that they've gone out and about and they've done things. And I'll say, did you have a good day? Tell me what you did. And so I'll kind of go back over with them, like saying some things like that, just to get some feedback for myself,
Mm-hmm.
see if they are okay themselves, if they are needing something from me. Um, I know as a parent, like, one kid is a little bit more needy than the other. Um, so I recognize those things and really try to hone in on them and make sure that they're okay. So churches, mentors, friends of yours are really important. And then if it becomes to another that it's bad, I would definitely seek out a counselor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a good point too, because sometimes there are going to be challenges that go beyond just, a fight that couldn't get resolved, but
Yeah.
maybe if a child, especially, like, it's normal to have friendships, and if a child has no friends, then that could be a sign that your child is maybe experiencing depression, or has experienced something like bullying or trauma that you may or may not be aware of. And so to definitely make sure that you're reaching out for that help. So before I ask for your kind of bigger picture takeaway points, are there any other practical suggestions that you would offer for parents to help them foster healthy friendships in their children?
I think I've said it numerous times in here. Use your voice. You said it as well. I say it to my kids all the time. If you don't tell me, I'm not going to be able to help. If you don't use your voice and you don't stand up for yourself, or you say what's wrong, I'm not going to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then define those relationships between yourself and with your friends. Show them how you would work out a relationship. Brainstorm with them. Talk it out. Ask them the hows and the whys. Discuss boundaries. And then really just try to not show judgment to your kid. No judgment, because when they feel judged, they're going to shut down, and they're not going to be able to talk to you about it, because they're not going to be able to feel like they feel open, that you're going to understand from their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's hard as a parent, because sometimes you want to judge and you want to tell them, no, that's not right. You don't need to do that. That's not okay. But listening, taking a step back, and then coming back with, well, how does that make you feel? How would you change that? Asking the questions to them, to let them work it out themselves and self-talk for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are all really great points. And I think the other piece that I would add to would just be to kind of let your child lead the way with all of those pieces too. And, I think as a parent too, sometimes we can think like, well, I'm this way, so my kids should be this way too. But realistically, there are some people in life who really do want to have 2 or 3 really close friends, and that's all they need. And then there's some people that want to have 100 friends and be friend to everybody, and any of those can be healthy, as long as people have close healthy relationships in their life, and have support and can be supportive. There's not one right way to do it. So the more that parents, I think, can really help honor their child's unique path in that area, the better.
Yeah.
So as we get to our last couple minutes here, what are 1 or 2 kind of takeaway points that you really hope people will take away from our conversation today?
I think the main thing is what I would want parents to really know, that to have a positive relationship and relationships in life is to really help your kids to become secure. If they're not secure in themselves, they're not going to be able to have those positive relationships no matter what, because they're going to overthink things, think about what they did wrong all the time, maybe think it's all their fault always. But if they become secure in who they are, they can learn from their mistakes. They can say that they're wrong. They can let pride go, and they can say, I'm okay, I was wrong. And those are healthy things. So teaching them at a young age just to be secure and being in their individual selves, and it's okay, and you don't have to be like everybody else. Mm-hmm. So that's the main thing I would say, is help them to be secure, and they'll hopefully have those secure relationships later on in life.
I think that's such a great point. We often, when we're talking about dating relationships, you hear people say, like, you can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself first. But in many ways, it's true when it comes to any type of relationship too, that, somebody really has to have built, and nobody's perfect, but the more that somebody can bring their best self to a friendship or any other type of relationship, the healthier that relationship is likely to be.
Right.
So I think that's a great point. I think my big kind of takeaway, or my big overarching kind of reflection on today's conversation, is just for parents to take kids' friendship experiences at an early age, even, very seriously. That, to not just dismiss them, but to really see these as opportunities for teaching your child about healthy relationships and laying groundwork for healthy relationships and friendships throughout the lifespan.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, well, great. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation today. And so thank you, Amy, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it as well. I may have rambled and said some things that people don't agree with or whatever, but again, it's just my personal opinion and perspective. So, but I just really appreciate you guys letting me have the opportunity to speak about this.